Howdy folks. If you've been here before, welcome back. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm the grouchy old patriot, and I appreciate you joining me for a little sit-down chit-chat that we call Coffee with the Grouch. I got something to talk about today that's I feel pretty important. And if you want, I'll give you a minute before I really get into the meat of things to go get a cup of coffee, a glass of iced tea, or your favorite adult beverage, and sit down and join me for this little chit chat. You know, I served a pretty good portion of my life wearing this nation's uniform in the Navy. While I didn't lose a leg or suffer any PTSD related injuries, it did cost me my first marriage and cost me the opportunity of being the father that I thought I should have been to my oldest daughter. But I was doing a job that I believed in, that I was passionate about. A job that I thought was important. I don't believe it's any less important today. But I got to look at what I was protecting, what I swore my oath to. And when I look around this nation today and I see how fragmented we are as a people, how tore apart we are one from another, it makes me wonder. We're going to play a little game with you today. We're going to put together a puzzle together. I'm going to give you the pieces of the puzzle. I'm going to let you put them together. I'm not going to draw any conclusions for you. I'm going to let you do that. But I don't want you using your heart. I don't want you using feelings, what feels like the right thing. I want you to use your head, use facts. Do a little reasoning about things. Put down in the comments below what conclusion you come to, and I'll see if you draw the same conclusion I've drawn. You know, we have become divided on little issues at the expense of the big ones. Back in the Jimmy Carter administration, he founded the Department of Education, and for all intents and purposes, nationalized our children's education. Oh, they dangle federal grants, dangle money in front of school boards and school administrations. If you teach this and you do it this way, we'll give you this. And they've taken control away from our local school boards and away from our parents with the assistance of the teachers' unions. They don't have our kids' best interests at heart. They don't have the future of this nation at heart. They have their tiny little personal vendettas and personal agendas that they're pushing. They don't teach civics in school anymore. I took civics in high school. I remember it well. My kids didn't have civics. They had a little bit of government in their history class, but it wasn't a course on civics. I looked in my kids' history book when they were in high school. And this isn't new material. We're talking 10, 11 years ago. One of my neighbors on his crotch rocket. He'll make a good organ donor one of these days. They had an entire chapter on the civil rights movement. They had half a chapter, thereabouts, on the Equal Rights Amendment and more modern topics. They had a page and a half on the Constitution. They had a quarter of a chapter on the Revolutionary War and what led up to it. The whole chapter, from the founding of the first colonies at Jamestown and the Pilgrims landing at Plymouth Rock, all the way up through the end of the Revolutionary War, was one chapter. Actually, beyond that, because they talked about the Articles of Confederation and the writing of the Constitution in that first chapter. Now I want to ask you, was the Equal Rights Amendment, was Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech and the Civil Rights Movement more important than the founding of this nation? Without the founding, they wouldn't have had a nation to have a civil rights movement in. I'm not saying it wasn't important. There's been people in this nation that have been treated poorly. The Native Americans, the way they were treated, African Americans, blacks. But you got to put it in context of the times. Hell, at the time, they had children working in factories in England. They had children working in the mines in Scotland. You know, women have never been treated fairly in the Middle East. Most of the sub-Saharan African nations, women are subservient. So we've come a long way. You know, no nation's perfect. Nations are run by men, and men are not perfect. We haven't always lived up to our ideals, but at least we had them ideals to try and live up to. You've always got to have a goal to shoot for. Now, I'm not going to blame everything on the Democrats, because there are plenty of Republicans in Washington that care about you about as much as they care about the man in the moon. All they care about is votes, retaining their power, their tea parties and their cocktail parties and state dinners, and they're more worried about looking good on camera than they are whether you can make it from paycheck to paycheck. Wasn't meant to be that way, but we've kind of let it get that way, and I've got another video kind of explains that. We're going to get to the puzzle now. We were energy independent. before the pandemic hit. Where'd that pandemic come from? All evidence I've seen, it originated in China. You know, it's kind of funny. There have been several illnesses that have seemed to originate from that part of the world. Now, we were, like I said, energy independent. We were a net exporter of energy to the world. But what was the first thing that our president did when he was elected? Shut down the Keystone XL pipeline, turned his Department of Energy loose on our energy sector, basically shut it down, starts pushing all these Green New Deal programs for wind and solar. And now, don't get me wrong, I like solar. I've got solar panels right over there that keep a small battery bank charged up, so I've got emergency power. You never know when you'll need it here in Oklahoma. But it can't do anything, or it can't do everything. The sun doesn't always shine, the wind doesn't always blow. They're not reliable. But we've shut down our coal sector, we've shut down natural gas and oil production for the most part. We got a president that goes begging to Venezuela and Saudi Arabia, and countries who do not have our best interest at heart, for oil. People want to say that he may be a slipping a tat or two upstairs, but I can't believe anybody's dumb enough to think that the American people would look at that and say, oh, that's a good job. We had a certain political party in control in certain states that really pushed the pandemic lockdowns and mask mandates and vaccine mandates, shut down their states' economies. And you got to ask yourself why. We had some states who, for the most part, pretty much remained open. Florida, South Dakota, Oklahoma for the most part. Economies stayed fairly vibrant. We didn't have mass deaths all over the place. There weren't bodies laying in the streets. So ask yourself, why were they pushing all this? Why have we shut down our energy sector? Why have we created a economy where inflation and energy prices are rampant? And why are we starting to teach, or have been teaching, revisionist history and social justice ideas and woke topics in our schools? What's the end game? Well, if you look at the Hunter Biden laptop and Obama's deals with, or not Obama, but Hunter Biden's deals with China and Ukraine, and whether Dad was involved or not, you start to form a picture. You know, we've got a family which it seems is making financial gains from the Red Chinese. You've got a war going on in Ukraine, which all of a sudden seems to have kind of fell out of the news, but we're still sending aid over there. You start to wonder if that may not be one of the biggest money laundering scams in the world, in history. Zelensky's not a hero. He's a crook. Always has been. Leopard don't change his spots overnight. We already know Vladimir Putin is a damn crook. He don't care about his people. We know the Bidens are crooks. They don't care about their people. Chinese are also investing worldwide in rare earth mineral mining. At the same time, the Environmental Protection Agency and Biden's administration has pretty much shut down rare earth mining here in the United States. Why? All these new electric vehicles and solar panels, what do they all have in common? What goes into them? Into making the panels and into making the batteries? Rare earth minerals. Wouldn't it make sense if we're wanting to push electric vehicles on the American people, that we be able to produce the components for them right here in the country? Got to import them from China. At the same time, the Chinese are coming in here and buying up agricultural land, buying up food processing plants, and taking control of our food stuff. Wonder why. Fentanyl is become an epidemic, flooding across our southern border, which is not secure by any stretch of the imagination. Where's the fentanyl being made? Where's it coming from? It's coming from China. You start to see where all these pieces of this puzzle kind of get put together. You've got an administration which is very cozy with the Chinese communists. You got the Chinese flooding our country with fentanyl, help easing the way into addiction and death to some of our most vulnerable. Not only that, right here in Oklahoma, Chinese are buying up 20 and 30 acres of property and putting in pot farms for the medical dispensaries. Well, let's see if we can demoralize a society by making drugs easier to get and cheaper to get, so that the people who are suffering have a easy way out, which is all drugs is. Allows people who can't cope to not have to cope. So we're going to demoralize the country, demoralize the society, at the same time forcing them to beg their neighbors for energy. At the same time, we're going to flood them with cheap goods and cheap products, so they become dependent upon Chinese manufacturing. Because I got news for you, people. Most American companies, corporations, they're in it for the bottom line. They're not patriotic. I don't care how many American flags they put on their products. I don't give a crap what they say. They're in it for the bottom line because they have stockholders to answer to, and they're going to manufacture their product where it's most beneficial for them. And right now, that's getting in bed with the Chinese. So, Chinese can shut off our supply chain. We're already seeing issues with that. Demoralize the country, flood it with cheap drugs, whether it be Oklahoma pot farms, Colorado pot farms, fentanyl coming across the border, you know, whatever. Getting control of the food and agricultural sector. And controlling our access to batteries, wind generators, solar power. At the same time, our administration, who I've already said is friendly with Chinese, is forcing us to go that route. Like I said, start putting all these pieces of the puzzle together. What do you conclude? I'm not going to tell you what my conclusion is, but you probably have a pretty good idea. We are the greatest nation in the history of the world. We have the potential to be as great as we want to be. But right now, we're being led to hell in a handbasket by a group of people who care more about their own personal power and their own wealth than they do about the nation as a whole. I don't have a quick, easy answer. There are no quick, easy answers. We've all been so busy, and they're keeping us busy. Think about it. Mainstream media, in bed with the Democratic Party. You can say, oh, no, they're not. They are. And you know, if you think about it and use your head instead of your heart, you know they are. They keep us arguing about transgender issues and LGBTQ issues and abortion, gun rights. They keep us arguing about a racial divide that only exists in their mind. I'm a truck driver. I drive to Louisiana and Mississippi and Alabama and Arkansas. I drive to California. I drive to Montana, Minnesota, Wisconsin. I deal with people of all races and creeds. And when you get right down to the nut cutting, the average working person are pretty good people. No matter who they are, where they come from, what color their skin is, what accent they speak with. It's the elites on the mainstream media, it's the elites in Washington, it's the elites in Hollywood that have kept us divided. And they're keeping us divided and keeping us arguing amongst ourselves so we don't look at the big goddamn picture and see what they're really trying to pull. And I apologize for that blasphemy, but it gets me pretty passionate. I've run a little long-winded today, and I apologize. Open your eyes, people. Start putting the pieces of the puzzle together. Visit with your neighbors. Visit with the parents of the kids your kids go to school with. When you're standing in line at the grocery store, talk to the person behind you. You'll learn they're not much different than you. They've got the same concerns you got. And most of the concerns we've got right now is getting by paycheck to paycheck, and they want it that way so we don't have to argue or don't have to look at the big picture. Leave a comment. Let me know what conclusion you've come to. If I get enough comments on this video, I may make another one and let you know what my conclusion is. But folks, I'm going to ask you, what's really important to you? We can all make it if we pull together. I want to help my neighbors. I want to help my friends. I know they'll help me. So we don't have to sweat the small stuff. Let's start worrying about the big things. Well, go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, hit that little bell thing, because apparently if you don't click it, YouTube says you don't really care and they don't do anything with the video. So I don't know how it all works, but it works that way somehow. But I'm going to get out of here for now. And I wish every one of you Godspeed in everything you do. And may liberty's torch light your path. Thank you for joining me.